was prepared and pretty much talking about the requirements of a good water distribution system. We did this to just not tell the council that everything is okay, but to highlight the degrees of the problem. The first requirement is that the water quality should not get deteriorated in the distribution pipes. We're certainly not meeting that. Capable of supplying the requisite amount of water from firefighting. We are there. I spoke with Mr. Paul Buckley, which is the superintendent for water distribution, and he assures me that we have 529 fire hydrants, and all of them are working in excellent conditions. And the third requirement is capable of supplying water at all the intended places with sufficient pressure and flow. Certainly because in the way that the study was conducted is thinking about the reduction in capacity, and that's how the whole plan was developed. And number four, the requirement of being capable of accurately metering water usage. We certainly have that. In terms of water quality, you can see the pictures. You've seen many of these, and many others have been sent to you. And it is a big problem. It is a very complex problem that, in my opinion, the city with the resources that we have are doing a very good job complying with the plan originally laid out to tackle this problem with the resources that are available. In terms of the water quality, we have areas that we keep track constantly, and later on, Dr. Hong is going to specify the number of complaints that we have in these areas, but that's the number of complaints that we get recently, so those are groups that, like this is, we got 7 complaints on this, 8 complaints. The caveat in this slide is that the number of complaints doesn't necessarily reflect that there are different houses that they have called with a complaint. It could be that the same house called more than once. Pressure and flow, and that's the question that we wanted to address in requirements 2 and 3, capable of supplying the requisite amount of water during firefighting. We have that, and although fire flow tests have found areas with less than desirable, not bad, but less than desirable flow rates, but they still will provide the adequate capacity in terms of a fire. This is one of the best slides that by the way, I used the slide from a previous presentation to just remind members that are in the council for a longer period in time than the new members. But pretty much to summarize, this slide summarizes the essence of the problem. We have a distribution system that has 90 miles of cast iron pipes. The replacement cost in year 2020 was at 1.5 million per mile. With all the budget that I have studied, the current recap plan includes 7 miles that have immediate needs. As I said, Dr. Hong is going to explain how she did the analysis and conducted the hydraulic modeling to come up with this number. And the whole project is pretty much spans from year 2020 to year 2027. So we were talking about 8 years, and about 0.8 miles per year. That was the original plan, to a cost of $14.5 million. There will be a table later on that shows how that was distributed in the different spaces that the city manager mentioned on his introduction to this presentation. Now, the left side of this slide is what pretty much is addressing the big problem that we have. But let's not forget that that the needs are bigger. If we think about 1.8 miles per year, we will, the cost that is explained in the replacement cost, we're talking about a total of $135 million that will be needed to fix the problem. So just food for thought. Okay, this is the slide I was talking about, and how that was planned. And starting in 2020, we are at the end of 2022, and we are going to into 2023. The reason why, please note that there are significant quantities in particular fiscal years to the tune of 3,698,000. And in another years, there's only 398. The difference is that during those years, it was planned to have the design while construction was being finished. In other words, originally it was planned to spend this the construction funded in 2021 and go all the way there and overlap with the study. Well, that was the plan, but as the city manager has expressed, we're happy to report that we are ahead of schedule in that. So it's just a matter of funding now. That is a fact. So as you can see, throughout the period of time that I mentioned before, from 2020 to 2027, so the original budget is about $14,500,000. That is the recapitalization plan to just fix the 7 miles that we were talking about. Mr. Matthews will talk about this, the funding source, and this is really interesting because the funding is limited to existing ratepayers. And there's really not growth opportunities without raising fees. And I don't think we're going that way. And so this is a very big challenge from the overall program. Okay, and this is a summary, or pretty much what I said, the problem that we are addressing or intended to address from year 2020 to year 2027. And again, as I said in the second slide, the total number of customers is about 8,000, and there are the fees that we charge, and then so here in the upper portion is the project cost or total funds needed in terms of project cost and loan fees that was planned in the budget to go from the period again from 2020 to 2027. Okay, I put this slide to repeat it, that the overall need long term is going to be $135 million. So we need to put our brains together and find out a way to address this in establishing different programs. But I'm very confident that working together with the citizens and through transparency, we'll be able to achieve a long-term solution. Okay, now I'm going to pass the presentation to Dr. Hong, and please tell me when you want to go to the next slide so I can do that for you.
All right, thank you, Jose, for the introduction. Good evening, everyone. So now we know that we have the problem. So how do we address the problem? To address the problem, we first need to understand well our water distribution system. So how do we do that? To achieve this goal, we developed our hydraulic model for the entire Bowie's water distribution system. We also did, I would say, over 150, close to 200 hydrant flow tests, and utilizing that data to calibrate our model, to use that to make our model be able to simulate piping conditions. And we also did some C-factor field verification test, use that to also for the calibration and compare with the model prediction test accuracy. And also I'm gonna cover in the next few slides are the discolored water costs. We did some analysis on that and then compare that with the model findings, just to verify, model results accuracy. And in addition to the system characterization for identify critical area, prioritize our work, we also did some research on the piping repair method. So the three main methods that we have considered here include Class 4 structural CIPP lining, that stands for cured in place pipelining method. This is a pretty innovative method, but is gaining more and more interest across the globe, I would say that. And the second method are pipe bursting. It also a relatively new, innovative method, and we actually tried both. And then the third is, fairly typical traditional open excavation method. And then in the next few slides, we will talk about pros and cons about each of these methods. So with this preparation, we are ready to identify and implement our most critical, I wouldn't say most critical because there are a lot more critical areas. I would say the first initial critical 7 miles, which are break down into 2 to 3 miles of executable smaller projects. Next slide, please. All right, so next, just giving a little more detail about the pros and cons, and about the methods of the three pipe repair, methods we discussed here. So first, pipe bursting. Thinking about pipe bursting, I actually put a cartoon picture here. So basically, the method is to using a bursting tool to cut open the cast iron pipe, and then the bursting head will then be poured through existing pipe, and then the bursting head actually has the capability to further expand the cut, so to make the existing pipe open and burst it wider to make room for the new pipe. So where is the new pipe? The new pipe is actually attached behind the bursting head. So as the bursting head is poured through the existing pipe, the new pipe is being poured along with the head and installing in the place of existing pipe. So when the pouring is done, the new pipe is installed. So this method, apparently, this method gonna need, at least 2 pits, right? The entry pits. If you look at the cartoon, you will see that there is a entry pits behind the vehicle wheel, And then there also will need to be receiving pits at the end. So these two pits, and then on the entry pit side, because the existing pipe is attached to the bursting head, the entry pit will need to be excavated a little bigger to incorporate the tail for the placement of the new pipe. But compare this to the traditional open excavation method, undoubtedly, there will be much less excavation, if we have to open the entire pipe up. And so that means less disruption to the neighborhood. And the other excavation needs associated with this method is at a service connection. So once the new pipe is installed in place, and we need to excavate at each service connection, and then to accomplish, to reestablish the service connection to the new main. So, compare this with traditional methods, still it is a great trenchless method. And then the second method we considered the class 4 cured in place pipelining method. It's also a trenchless method. This is even like a newer innovative method. And this method, actually, I also provided some cartoon picture. This is actually a real construction picture in the lower part, right-hand side. So you will see that instead of, so this method is also pouring the new pipe into existing pipe, but instead of pouring formed, completed hard pipe, this one is pouring polyester jackets, flexible tubing, and this tubing is impregnated with resin, thermal setting resin in the polyester jacket. And then this jacket, before it's cured and formed in place, it's flexible. That means this method actually really need minimum preparation method because it's flexible. So once this polyester jacket is poured into the place, this tube will be inflated with either hot water or steam. And then once it's inflated, and then it will be cured in place. The resin is actually the components that will be cured and then form a solid standalone pipe inside the existing pipe. That's why this method is called structural lining, because the inner pipe itself can be a standalone, it is strong enough to be a standalone pipe. And then once the new pipe is in place, connection, how is the service connection to the new main done? The amazing part about this method is the reinstatement of the service connection to the new main is done by robot. And the robot is inside, remotely controlled, and from inside of the pipe. So there's no excavation needed. So from here, compare the class 1 method with the pipe bursting method, and we can see that class 4 method definitely has more advantage here, because of the flexibility of the new piping. It requires less pits, smaller pit, immersion pit, compared to pipe bursting. And also it doesn't, it requires pretty much no excavation needed at the service connection. And that would be a huge benefit, would means least disruption to the neighborhood. And also cost-wise, this method is very cost-effective. Given, and the last method, is the traditional method, open excavation. Is just by its name, it means open up the existing pipe, right? So that that implies most disruption to the neighborhood, and also is the most expensive method. So we actually tried all three methods. Next slide, please. So in terms of the work that has been completed so far, we have actually tried between 2018 to 2022 three major segments. The first two are all smaller segments, kind of like a pilot projects. And the first project in 2018 is 850 feet of pipe between Liliana Place and Long Ridge. And this is, just a small piping section and down through pipe bursting. And the second, slightly bigger project, we finished in Heather Hills, a portion in Heather Hills, about 2,200 linear feet. And this is done, using combining pipe bursting with limited open excavation, because sometimes there are restrictions on like a curvature if the curve if there are interruption between the bursting pipe or if the curve doesn't fit for pipe bursting, then open excavation has to be implemented. And then the last, the most recent project that we just accomplished that's a major project, 2.6 miles of pipe, and cost 3.4 million. And that's the class 4 structural lining method, combined with about very limited, about 10% of the length in open excavation. And it took only 10 months to finish. And although initially we have conservatively planned 2 to 3 years, but we had secured our excellent contractor, and all the design and construction just went smooth. So that's very successful experience. And actually, after the construction, we actually checked the effect, compared the effect. So what we find out is, I will show you in the next slides later. Heather Hills actually is the most weakness spot. Since we are in these slides, let me talk about these slides right now. I put a map here, and these slides is based on hydraulic modeling. And what these slides did is it actually compared the current system 5-flow performance with model simulated 5-flow performance under normal piping conditions. So what happened is, imagine, we have seen in the piping interior, when you have a lot of tubercles, right? The friction loss are tremendous because piping diameter reduced, right? So that's why you will see reduced 5-flow and reduced residual pressure during 5-flow. So the more head loss it is, then the worse the piping condition is. So how does it translate to the graph here? So it is actually indicated by the red dots. The red dots indicated the head loss difference between the current system performance and the good, piping system 5-flow performance. So the bigger the difference is, it just means the more head loss the current system have, right? Then the bigger the red dots will be. So looking at the graph on the left-hand side, and you will see that in the bottom, that's a header health area. Look at how big the red dots are. So it's a little bit hard to see the scale here, but what I like to make you aware is, the biggest head loss actually we find out here is about 55 psi head loss. And so what does the 55 psi head loss means? So in our water distribution system, we typically operate at around 92 psi. So imagine at the end of the network, you are losing, more than half of the operating pressure. So imagine when you have a huge, like a 5 flow, how much head loss, how much, limited 5 flow we're gonna get at the end of the system. That's why our first few projects are kind of focused on the header health area. So, all right, so now we have talked about, the header health performance, and since now header health has been rehabilitated, so what is the effect? And then so we recently did a 5 flow test, and then compared with the 5 flow test before the project is done. In header health. So we have found out at the weakness spot, the 5 flow has increased from around 400 GPM to 1,000 GPM. So according to 5 flow standards, typically for like 1 to 2 dwelling residential household, I mean, they're like for the criteria. Area, the housing area coverage, probably around 5,000 square feet, I think. The minimum 5 flow required is 1,000 GPM. So I'm glad, I'm glad to inform everybody that header health now we do see the 5 flow increase to the minimum 5 flow requirement now. All right, next slide, please. All right, so this is another slide that summarizes.
Just to interrupt a little bit, Tom, yes. To clarify to the council, I mistakenly corrected that table. So that table is shown later on with the correct values and the correct headings. That's on me. I didn't want to change it because you have it already in your package, but just concentrate on the map in this area, and you will see the correct table with the correct headings later on. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Jose. So this is another slide that summarizes the model findings, and so what this slide tells us is it gives a prediction estimation of the a critical C factor, Hazen-Williams hydraulic hydraulic equation. A C factor. This C factor is actually the friction loss coefficient for the water pipe. So typically, for a typical cast iron pipe, if it's a new pipe unlined, C factor is expected to be around 130. And however, in with the input from our flow test and C factor test and miscellaneous input, and you will see that the first column where severe is labeled, the C factor, for those piping are on in the range between 6 to 20. That's extremely low. Thinking about typical, it should be 130. And then the next column, where it's labeled regular, it's also very bad. That is the C factor between 20 to 40, also extremely low. So, I mean, that's, and then the next benign column, I think that factor is between 40 to 80. So it's better. It is better, you know, than the first two categories, but still not good, right? So that's how we, you know, so in this table here, we summarized, you know, the most concentrated, extensive, you know, urgent area. You know, and then it is pretty much listed by the length of the most severe condition in the pipe. Like for example, you know, canal walls C factor 6 to 20, you know, 4.5 mile, So basically, this table kind of gives a summary of the overall worst piping condition. And I also would like to point it out that, you know, the hydraulic model, there are limitations, because sometimes, you know, you don't have good sampling location. Like I say, you don't have ideal combination of the hydrants location, and that may not be able to, you know, accurately depict, you know, the exact piping condition for certain pipe. So there are certain limitations, but if in certain area there are multiple, you know, test data, hydrant flow test data, all indicating, you know, the piping condition is bad. Then when we do the model, you know, we can, you know, do assumption, okay, just based on this data, maybe all these segments are bad. So so that would that would mean that, you know, if there are like a limit conditions, mix and match condition. The reason I bring it up is, you know, we don't have good records indicating where the cast iron pipe are unlined. So although, you know, in this graph here, you can see that generally in northern part of the piping network, the piping condition, you know, seems to be okay, but it doesn't exclude that there might be, you know, mix and match condition. If it's mix and match condition, you know, the model, it may take like a further effort for us to further narrow down, pin down the exact, you know, piping, certain segment of piping that need to be replaced. But in terms of the overall modeling projected, I would say we have already achieved it, because we have identified the most extensive, you know, area that should be replaced in bulk. So if like in the future we can address the most extensive area, when we get to those sporadic area, at that point, like further investigation effort would need to take place. All right, so next slide. So this is just a summary of our analysis on the discolored water costs between 2017 and 2021. And then it is arranged by basically the number of the total number of costs between these 4 years, and from high to low. So we compared the problem area with the model identified area. It lined up pretty well, so that you know, also give us more confidence that yes, you know, these are indeed the most urgent area we should treat first. With that, I'd like to pass it back to Jose.
Okay, thank you. This is pretty much what the correct values that Dr. Yin was explaining. See, the first column is 6 to 20. That's really bad. The 20 to 40 is bad, and the 40 to 80 is also bad, but not as bad as the two first. And so basically, if everybody remembers the first table in terms of the overall budget, the study is pretty much to repeat the process that Dr. Yin has explained to us to just verify that indeed we're going to be tackling those areas. And I'd like to change now have Mr. Matthews talk about the funding.
Thank you, Jose. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. This is H. Byron Matthews, the Finance Director for the City of Bowie. And I'm just going to hope to just shed a little bit of light on the finance mechanism that's available to us in order to handle capital projects within the water and wastewater system. According to the city code, the city has the power to borrow money upon the faith and anticipated revenue certificates for the purpose of operating any water or sewer system. And what that means is basically is one of the mechanisms, which this is a three-pronged process, if you would look at it that way. One is general revenue that we generate from the pipe renewal and replacement charge. The other component is bonds and loans that we may issue in order to generate revenue to do the capital improvements. And in addition to that, any grants that may be available. Over the last several years, the Public Works Department has gone through the Department of the Environment to obtain loans to assist them with some of the programs facing the utility. We have been successful in older programs dealing with the E&R system that we put in. We were able to receive a grant for that, which allowed us a low interest grant loan in order to pay back the construction costs for that. The way we're looking at this creative funding mechanism to replace the pipes, as you can see, is over several years that we're looking at this program. And we're going to generate revenue, one, from our renewal and replacement program, which is a fee that will have the tendency to go up as we go deeper into the program. There will come a time where we'll have to issue debt to help us in the capacity based on how much pipe we're able to replace and how much it will cost. And then if there are federal or state grant monies that are available, that will also increase our capacity when it comes to replacing the amount of pipe during a given fiscal year. I think one of the mechanisms that I wanted to look at, and Jose, I don't know if that's in your next slide. Maybe I can address it here. If we look at what we've done since 2016, we have basically spent over $2.3 million on the recapitalization program. That included pipe replacements and the replacement of the water meters. And during the time that we instituted the recapitalization fee, we've collected over $2.9 million, all of that which has been spent. In addition to that, we have other projects unrelated to the recapitalization program that from 2016 to 2021, we have spent $2.5 million. I want to remind council and the citizens that the current water and sewer plant is an enclave. We don't have the ability to expand our customer base. We are servicing about 7,900 customers, and that's it. But as we know, the cost of running a water and sewer plant continues to rise. And the only way that the city is able to cover the cost to bring clean water to the city is to increase rates and control cost. And that is the mechanism in which we operate the water and sewer facility. During the fiscal year ending June 30th, for the water and sewer plant, the water and sewer plant only generated about $1 million in revenue. And all of that revenue goes back into the plant, both water and sewer. So there's not a big profit margin that the city is working with in providing water and wastewater services. Council may recall that maybe 20 years ago, it was not very popular to raise rates. And there were many years that the city did not raise rates on its water and sewer customers. And we used the fund balance in order to cover any additional costs just as we went on in years. In the last 10 to 7 years, we've changed that, and we've tried to make sure that the water and sewer system is a balanced system when it comes to revenue and expenditures, as close as we can. We have to have some type of fund balance in order to make sure that we have a reserve in order to handle any emergencies that may come up at any given time. Current law has it that the water and sewer fund cannot receive any type of revenue from the general fund in order to run the facility. It could borrow money from the general fund, but it would have to borrow it at an implicit rate. And what that means is that it has to be a competitive rate. It could not be a subsidized rate. It would have to be a basic market rate. So, as that being one of the options, we're still looking at current revenues, bonds, and grants to facilitate the cost of the recapitalization system. Jose, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you, Council and Mayor, for your listening.
Thank you, Byron.
Right.
I think that this is about it. Just let me close by thanking you again for the opportunity and just express what the city manager said at the end. This is a very complex problem that has three legs. The first one is the funding. The second one are the resources available to manage a program of this magnitude, even if we get the funding. And the third one are the logistics. I think Dr. Ian covered pretty much some aspects of the logistics, because we are using very high tech and technology, but there are some instances, but we have no option but to use excavation. Thank you again, and we're ready for any questions that anybody could have.
Thank you so very much. Appreciate that. I think that's quite informative for us as a council, as well as for the citizens as well. I don't know if any council members have any questions at this time.
Yeah, Mr.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Let me start by saying thank you to staff. We know how difficult, especially those districts and members of this body that represent folks who are on this water system and have concerns about this issue and tuberculation as a whole. And obviously, past councils have had to deal with this as well. One of the chief questions I want to ask Byron, maybe you can actually help, and feel free, city manager, to hop in if you can. I see what you did a good job breaking down the federal earmark request that we did last year, and obviously we all know that because of the CR, we're not going to see that money until an omnibus is passed in the inside. On the state funding side, though, however, there's a line here that says Bowie applies each year for, and it actually is blank. Byron, can you give me some more background on what somebody was trying to say here, because that may help answer my question.
And Mayor Pro Tem, if I could, for the citizens listening, when you make the term CR, that's continuing resolution. Just go right ahead, Byron.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it refers to, Councilman, the fact that each water and sewer project, there are state funds available. But normally those state funds are available in a need situation. Right. And as you are aware, the city, when looked at as a whole, very seldom meets the need criteria. We normally capitalize on the state projects when we have a project that is unique, or we're the first one out of the block as a demonstration project. Those funds are then more readily available. We receive annually a small $105,000 grant for the water and sewer operation. But there has not been any other successful grant solicitations within the last 6 years.
Right. Well, a couple of things I want to mention here, right? And as we talk to our partners on the state level, on the federal level, and on the local level, one of the things I wonder is if we've had the opportunity to participate and receive dollars from the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. And if we haven't, obviously that should be a huge consideration, right? Well, let me first ask, have we gotten any dollars from?
We have, and that has been some of the older programs that we have worked with. We just recently paid off one of those drinking loans just last fiscal year. So we still have one that's out right now. We pay a little less than $100,000 per year on the debt service of that. So not all of the programs from the state are free money. Some of it is loan, and some of it can be a grant.
And when was the last time we participated in receiving money from the state on that angle. Byron.
That's a good question. I think it was done back in 2011 when we were dealing with the enhanced nutrient removal system.
Right. Okay. One of the things I'm going to recommend to staff, just as a general notice, and obviously I think we have a presentation after this that may touch on some of this, is that as we talk to the EPA administrator, one of the things that they've pointed out in the president's infrastructure bill is that obviously there's going to be money going to various programs, but that we should seriously look at the $144 million that's allocated to the state. Apparently sometimes the state doesn't use all of that, right? There may be an opportunity for us, at least to the governor's office, to try to really get more money, especially as this infrastructure bill is going to bring more dollars to the state. A lot of those programs and a lot of this fund money that the federal government and the EPA supplies to the state won't actually be spent up. And so it's something that we actually should probably look into really heavily. I know the congressional delegation on Friday is going to be having a meeting for Prince George's County municipal officials, both staff and electeds, with the EPA administrator. And this is an opportunity for us as a city to kind of connect with the federal government and also using our congressional delegation to try to get the state more money for this fund, because this fund is actually comes from the federal government side of things. So I just think that's an investment that we need to look into, because I do believe that we probably can get more money out of that, and obviously use some of the money that we're using now to pay the debts off. So that's just my recommendation as we go forward. I think it's clear, again, staff, thank you so much for everything that you guys have done, and Jose, your team, what a great presentation. I think it's clear that money is going to be the biggest impediment here, and that we're going to try to have to figure out multiple ways of trying to raise the dollars to really get this done. Sorry, Byron, go ahead.
No, Councilman Boafo, we are right on the same wavelength that you are. City manager has convened a meeting between myself, the Public Works Director, and the Grants Director. And we are now in a process of looking at those grants, seeing what's available, and Mr. Bugs is heading that up, and we're now pulling that away from the Public Works Department so that they can more succinctly concentrate on their mission.
Well, city staff, as you guys continue to move forward on this matter, and we're going to have multiple approaches here, please let us know where council can be involved, especially on the state level, as we need to talk to the governor and trying to get more dollars here and seeing those open lines of communication. Right, we're about to head into session. It's going to be an opportunity that I think we don't want to miss this cycle to really see if we can get more dollars, especially as the allocation of the Build Back Better plan really starts hitting the states. So again, thank you, staff, and that's all I have to make.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any other comments, questions from any of the other council members?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Please go right ahead, Council Member Wolfley.
Couple of things. First of all, Jose, welcome to the city. You get to land a new job, and no small task ahead of you, and appreciate the time and effort you spent so far on this project. And congrats to folks for getting the first part done. Heather Hills and those neighborhoods there, and that small section over in Long Ridge, getting those projects done. That's really good news. And I'm also glad that we are ahead of schedule in getting those completed. I still have some outstanding questions here in terms of being able to identify, see these neighborhoods listed in the report, but I can't tell if there's a relationship between the areas that are going to be worked on and the areas where we've had people complaining about discolored water. Because I know the two issues that we're dealing with, one is with pipe replacement because of flow, and the other is there's discoloration. Can you speak to which areas we're going to be working on next?
Are you gonna take that one, or do you want me to?
I mean, either way is fine.
Why don't you?
Okay, all right. Yeah, so the next section we are focusing on are canal walls. So if you look at, Jose, I don't know if you want to bring up the slides on identifying critical areas. So where we had color-coded different piping segments.
Hold on. Just give me a minute.
Sure.
Okay, I think I'm almost ready. I need to share my screen first. That will help. Okay, can you see it?
Not yet.
What about now?
We're not in that slide.
Yeah, I know. I'm
There we
just,
go.
Next
That one?
one. Next one. Yeah. So this in the bottom area, that's pretty much canal walls, and this is a big area. So basically, the color code is black, terrible, brown, very, extremely bad too, and then followed by red, also very, very bad. And so you can see that canal walls. So pretty much we in the table we line it up by the length of the severe pipe segment. And then on the discolored water course, we aligned in that table. I think we aligned the costs basically by the number of costs at different neighborhood. And so for both tables, you will see that canal walls is the top, on the top of the list. And then in addition to that, we know that Heather House, which is right below canal walls, we just finished it. So we feel like with this, we feel like that makes canal walls a good candidate for the next, big segment, and because of the big disturbance area, and from the because generally, if you're looking at the piping color coding, you will see that the whole southern section of the piping system are all very bad. So now we have fixed the very tip, which is the Heather House. And then next section, will be canal walls, and just from its severity, the C factor, and extent of the problem, as well as the discolor, the resident, cause, and all kind of pointing out that Heather House, probably should be the next one.
So I see that as in aggregate, but I suspect that there are places where the pipes, for example, Kenilworth, and I'm not disagreeing that there are significant problems there, but there may be pipes in Kenilworth, there are, parts of Kenilworth that are not as pipes in, say, Meadowbrook.
Yeah.
So that you have kind of a mix, and I'm a little concerned with the idea that we're looking at it as kind of this big neighborhood by neighborhood when the problems may be a bit more isolated. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, finish.
Yeah. So my thinking is that if we have known hotspot areas, subsections of Meadowbrook, subsections of Kenilworth, or Buckingham, where we've got repeat problems with discolored water, that they may be, even though the neighborhood as a whole may not be as bad, that we still address that subsection of those neighborhoods, you know, a street here or there that seems to be having greater problems. Is it possible to go in and treat or replace pipes, you know, for a couple streets in this neighborhood, and then a couple streets in that neighborhood to get the worst, you know, problems taken care of, and then come back and do the rest of the pipes?
Yeah, so I can answer this question. So in terms of discolored water costs, we do have GIS map, which, unfortunately was not included in this presentation slides. But we do have GIS map, which shows where the discolored water cost is. So I actually do have the map, you know. And what I wanted to let you know is for canal walls, the spread of the discolored water cost is not concentrated. It's spread across entire canal walls. Mm-hmm. And so that's the, you know, answer your first question. And second question, well, kind of related to this question regarding concentrated area, just from the experience with Heather House. So Heather House, which is a section, neighborhood section we just finished. And, you know, because we did the entire pipe. The good thing is we used the CIPP lining method, you know, replace the pipe. With this method, we are able to see the pipe condition, the interior pipe condition, before we line the pipe. So, so let me tell you, every piping segment in Heather House are bad. So there are no good one. So from the modeling, hydraulic modeling that we did, you know, given the number of tests, and in fact, when we collect the hydraulic, the hydrant flow test data, we did intentionally to spread the test across the entire neighborhood, and then so all the tests are bad. So that just you know, kind of tells us that you know, it's probably not a concentrated problem. And then to answer another question that you asked, can we you know, replace pipe segment by segment? So technically we can do that. But for situation like the canal wall situation, if it is like the entire neighborhood, you know, and there is, I mean, obviously, you know, we do the model, and then we do have to assume, you know, this area, you know, based on this data, maybe the whole area, the C factor are pretty low, right? We do have to assume that. And there may be a chance, right, that, okay, in these, you know, sections of the canal walls, there might be one or two pipes. What if the, you know, contractor just accidentally, you know, put some cast iron with lining in, right? There is such a possibility, but I would say from the discolored water core patterns, as well as the intentionally picked hydrant flow test data spread across the canal walls, and the consistent low fly flow test data. And I would say, you know, there is a higher possibility that the whole canal wall section are probably, you know, is doing what the model predicting it's doing. And another thing I'd like to add is, you know, if an area, like I said, the big area is generally in bad condition, and maybe some, like I said, maybe one or two street is in slightly better condition, we leave it out. and then come back to do this street. If we specifically come back just for 1 or 2 streets, taking into account the staging, the mobilization, all this preparation, the overall cost probably going to be more expensive. Wouldn't make it cost effective. Just come back to do that 1 or 2 few streets.
Yeah, that's what I was going to add in terms of doing that, because I can understand where the council member is coming. Is pretty much addresses the needs of a particular individual that's complaining. There's a saying that said the squeaky wheel gets the grease. But by doing that, we may affect more residents by not solving the problem from the engineering perspective, but solving the problem from the political perspective. And I think that there's a distinct difference on the benefits, because this study was done in just for everybody to know, Dr. Yin did the complete study, and she shared the information with me. And as an engineer, I can tell you that it was very meticulously done. And you guys, well, we, plus the city, have an excellent professional that's dealing with the situation from the engineering perspective.
No, and I'm not disagreeing with that, but what I am suggesting, though, is that in some cases, and I think that they're in either Tulip Grove, Kenilworth, Meadowbrook, that there are certain sections which are manifesting themselves as a bigger problem than elsewhere. The symptoms of the problem, I think, are worse for certain streets in certain areas. I don't think, even if the model suggested all of the pipes in the neighborhood are bad and need replacing, I'm not arguing against that. I'm suggesting that may be the case, but there are certain areas which are getting, the worst of it, even though they're all in a situation where they need replacing. And my concern is that we need to address the situations where we have, demonstrably worse, water conditions, and that's never mind the squeaky wheel aspect of it. But if it's, I think our boots on the ground are people who are out there going and doing the fire hydrant draining method could probably tell you which neighborhoods have a worse circumstance than others, and they can be in this, or which street in the same neighborhood have the worst circumstances. So I know that I've seen some of the water from some of these pipes, and it's not as bad as it is in my neighborhood, but it would look from the maps that I'm looking at that the pipes in my neighborhood are as bad as or worse than the neighborhoods that are getting their darker water problems. And I don't have a huge problem with my water. I do get problems from time to time. So I think we've got to find a solution that addresses where there are pockets of greater need. And I don't. Go ahead.
I understand, and I agree with you completely. This is, if you remember, there are portions on the overall plan to design what we're going to do. And the model is an organic model, because deterioration in an asset happens with time. And you can very seldom predict where that's going to go. So one of the things that we're going to do at each phase is to recalibrate the model and see if indeed the original thoughts are the ones that we need to address, or there are other portions of the area that got deterioration or tuberculation more aggressive than others. So that's where we cover that from the engineering perspective, when we don't just do it once and just go with it. The part of the study that's going to be done is going to be to verify exactly what you are asking.
Jose, let me chime in here. This is a policy issue. The plan that's been briefed is the one that the council sanctioned, and 5 years ago when I was sworn in. And we have a pipe replacement project set to start, design to start in this budget, and then we have another, both 2.5 miles. So, presently we're, the plan was to follow the course of action that was briefed by the engineer. If the council wants to deviate from that, if we want to develop a plan, a project, and we focus on hotspots, well then that's something we need to price out and come back and see how much it costs to do that, as opposed to a plan that's in existence right now. We can adjust it however we like. It's a policy decision that we have to.
I agree with you completely.
If I may, one thing I'd like to point out, this is an interconnected system. And one of the challenges in terms of understanding where what's called a hotspot is, if you have a number of complaints on one particular street, the question then is the sedimentation that's in the pipe, is that coming from that section of pipe along that street? Or is it from the adjacent pipe on the next street over that is flowing through and going to that street? Part of the engineering answer in terms of that detailed look that Jose would be looking at, and Dr. Yen would be looking at, is in this distributed system, where does it make sense to be putting those, putting that pipeliner? Because you may be lining a pipe that is upstream from where the water flow comes and resolving a problem downstream rather than where the exact issue is. It really depends on how the water is flowing through the pipe and where the sedimentation is occurring to have those more frequent issues.
Thank you, Daniel. I believe,
Mr. Mayor.
want to say something? Go right ahead, Councilman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just got a message from Ms. Harrington, who is to present after this. She has to sign off, and I was wondering if we could pivot to Ms. Harrington, who could brief us on her project as it relates to water, and then if we have any questions for her, and then we can then pick back to this. She just texted and stated that she has to run off to another engagement.
Okay, I guess my question would be right now, if there's any other questions though.
Yeah,
Yes,
I have further questions on the subject, so. If we need to step off for a minute, then we need to come back because I got more questions.
Yes, that would be fantastic. Thank you,
as long as council is okay with us going to Ms. Harrington now. I see the shake of the head. Ms. Harrington, if you would.
Yes, good evening, and I'm shaking my head for all the council members. Thank you so much. I'm actually signing in from Costa Rica. I'm out of the country right now, so I'm actually an hour ahead of you, and I had a 9:30 previous engagement set before this presentation this evening, so I apologize, and they're going to wait on me, but I didn't want to keep them waiting too much longer after the time that we had set. So with that being said, I just want to thank everyone and good evening to everyone. Thank you, Honorable Mayor Adams and the council, as well as City Manager, Mr. Lott. I included a presentation that I sent to your clerk, and I hope that she has had an opportunity to distribute it to everyone. Has everyone received it?
No.
Ms. Harrington, I apologize. I had it actually ready to share the screen if you like.
Oh, that would be
forwarded to them right now.
Okay, thank you. If you could manage that for me, that would be absolutely great. As she's doing that, let me give you just a little background. My name is Deborah Harrington. I am the founder and CEO of Energy Audits and Green Solutions, which is a company that is a certified minority woman-owned small business located actually in Prince George's County, certified by MDOT, as well as several other states throughout the US. And I was reading about this water issue, which certainly your engineers have laid out for you in a very distinguished way. And I thought that I could potentially be of assistance with a solution to help. I heard the last comments from the councilman asking, what can we do now? We know the long plan that Mr. Lott had mentioned that had been approved previously, but we have residents who are concerned about the discoloration. So I decided to reach out, share with you a solution that I think could actually assist you in making your residents know that they're safe. The drinking water is safe. Your engineers have certainly indicated that from the studies and the tests that have been done with the water, but the discoloration is certainly a concern. So as you go through this slide, and you can go to the next one if you could please.
There you go.
That's just an introduction of my company. You can take a closer look and read that at your will. So if you can go to the next slide. Some of our certification, our expertise and capacity, we have the bonding capacity, aggregate bonding capacity up to 50 million. My engineers are licensed in 42 states. We've done implementation of projects literally throughout the country, actually throughout the world. Specifically with this particular solution that I'm describing to you today, the manufacturer that we use for this particular solution, we've done over 600,000 installations. So if you can go to the next slide for me, please. Talking about, of course, clean drinking water. Next slide, please. So this solution that I'm suggesting that you can implement immediately is a UV water disinfection system. And it is exactly what it says. It's a whole house UV system that goes on the main line as the water comes into the house. It takes care of any discoloration and any contaminants that are found within the water. Go to the next slide for me, please. So this talks about UV treatment. I'm sure your engineers are very familiar with it. It does not take out the minerals that you want to retain in the water. It only deals with the microorganisms that you don't want in the water. And with UV, what occurs with this treatment is that it does not allow these microorganisms to reproduce. If you could go to the next slide for me, please. So this is what actually shares with you, how the UV light treats the water. It provides a rapid, effective inactivation of microorganisms through a physical process. And again, as I indicated, it's instantaneously, and it does not allow these microorganisms to reproduce. The next slide, please. The effectiveness of the UV treatment, basically, and I'm sure you've heard about a lot of UV treatments that are occurring also with COVID usage in HVAC systems as well. So this system, UV treatment, is not new. It's very effective. It's very economical. The implementation is very, if you will, easy to do. And I think that in terms of what you're trying to provide to your residents as a quick solution, something that they can see being done in a very expeditious manner, I believe this is a great, great option for you to look at. Next slide for me, please. These again are the features of the UV water disinfection system. I apologize profusely going through these slides so quickly and not being able to truly give you an in-depth presentation in terms of all the explanations as we go through each slide. Again, I was so committed in trying to at least present some information to you that you can think of to help your residents feel more, if you will, comfortable about the water that they are actually drinking, despite the fact that tests show that it is not harmful in any way. It is just discolored. I think that this is, again, a great solution. It's a long-term solution in terms of allowing you to do your permanent solution. These filters last up to a year. There's a system within this system that gives you an alert for any maintenance when it's time to replace the filter. The warranties on the system, it's a 10-year warranty on the system. And I think it's just a phenomenal, phenomenal opportunity to be able to share with the residents of Bowie that we're being progressive and active and trying to bring an immediate solution while we work on the permanent fix of replacing those pipes. And the next slide. And this is basically what the system looks like. It goes right at the unit, you know, in the basement of your home, where you have your main water line. As the water comes in, it actually goes through the system, through the filters, in that way, and it takes care of discoloration, it takes care of any odor. Again, not removing any of the minerals that we do actually want to get from our water. Installation takes about somewhere between 90 minutes to 2 hours, if that long, depending upon, sometimes it's a little tight where people have their main lines. But it's, again, a very, very, I believe, optimum solution for the situation that's occurring in the city of Bowie. Did you have any questions? I would be willing to meet with staff upon my return next week.
I would like to speak to Ms. Harrington. Every council is aware that Mr. Gallagher came out last council meeting and spoke about the water conditions that he was dealing with. Mr. Gallagher has now received a filter, and he has sent me a photo of the filter. And not only has he stated to me that the filter works, he says that he's amazingly surprised, and this has resulted in a complete life change for him. He says it's an awesome solution, and he was happy to receive a filter.
Good. Thank you, Councilman. Any council members, any questions now, or maybe we can entertain some other questions? Councilwoman Harris?
Yes, thank you so much, Deborah, for your presentation. And I do understand that the filter is wonderful and works very well. The question is, will you be able to put together a proposal of some sort with pricing and that sort of thing to present to staff and get that information?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, and one other thing.
Go right ahead, Councilman.
Have you found, you said that the filtration system connects directly to the pipes in the basement. Would there be any homes that have presented issues where you couldn't install the filter?
No.
No? Okay.
Right on your water main line, you know, you have a little lever that you can up and down. Yes.
And that's where you install it, that's what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, so it doesn't go under a sink or anything like that?
No, this is a whole house. So all the water coming in.
Okay.
I'll let you meet with staff on this because the houses in questions are all built by Levitt. There are no basements. And the water, it's not as simple as it's typically it's a turn valve, not the more modern type, and the space is pretty limited because it's underneath people's kitchen sinks. And the water comes in and it gets shut off, and then it keeps going into the house and returns onto the water. So there's a lot more that needs to be looked at, and I think that these things are certainly worth considering. But the costs have to be looked at as well. And ultimately, it doesn't solve my problem. With fixing the pipes, they need to be addressed.
Correct. Ms. Harrington, Mr. Mayor.
Just wanted to share with you real quickly on that comment, because we do install these in condominiums and apartments where we have that, if you will, challenge. So that's not an issue. The plumbers can put together whatever additional piping or systems that are needed, so we can retrofit wherever it needs to go.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
I have a question for Ms. Harrington. Ms. Harrington, you mentioned that these would go, Councilmember Wolfley mentioned that these, and Mr. Gallagher, that they would go under the sink because of the Levitt community doesn't have a basement. They fit under the sinks of different sinks of the different homes.
Yes.
My question to you, what if you could, high level, just tell us what are the costs that would be associated with the actual filter as well as installation, and collectively, what would that be for installation and the part itself? What are we looking at roughly?
Somewhere around $1,900, $2,000 for a total full turnkey solution.
For both the installation as well as the filter itself?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Harrington.
Yes.
Hey, if there aren't any other questions at this moment, Ms. Harrington, thank you so much, Deborah, for taking the time.
Absolutely.
Yes, I hope you can get to your meeting, and again, look forward, I'm sure, to having some more information provided to staff. Again, thank you so very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. Harrington. Enjoy your stay.
Stay safe.
All right, will do.
Thank you. You do the same, and Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Okay, at this time, we will now revert back to staff, as we were talking about prior to the, do we have any other questions for staff? I believe, Councilman Gfoa, you said you had a couple more questions.
Yes, indeed. So a couple of follow-ups here. So, Byron, you mentioned that we were not able to use general fund money for this purpose. Is that correct?
Councilman Wolfley, I've just been admonished by our legal counsel in that we may need to get a legal opinion on that. So I will just reframe and say that I am not the person to answer that particular question, and I believe I might have spoke out of turn. So I'll leave that to Ms. Levan to provide us some guidance on that.
I don't know of any reason why you can't send money to the Water and Sewer Fund. You can't take money out of it. You can't use bond funds for general fund purposes. But I don't know of any reason or any provision in the law that would prevent you from doing that.
So
ordinarily, I would not provide this advice in public session.
Okay. What we could do is request that we get a written opinion from you, maybe, Alyssa, as we move forward. I think that would serve us all well. All right, going back to you.
So if that's the case, so what, I know we have money from COVID relief, and pardon me? ARP money, yes, thank you. That the city has received, and one of the things that's been specified in that that language is that it's suitable for use for water, resolution of water problems, capital improvements along those lines. And, I think it's certainly, it would, in my mind, and I think I speak for the rest of the council, that it would be the sense of the council that we want to be using that money for that, for that purpose. And at some point, I don't know how we codify that, but I think we need to commit to making that money available for these ongoing projects. And of course, we do have the additional monies that we're pursuing, through the current appropriations. Knock on wood, someday we'll get past continuing resolutions and into legitimate funding. And then, of course, as Councilman Boafo mentioned, additional funding needs to be pursued through grants and whatnot.
Absolutely.
But I do think we need to start off with that. So I want to, stress my desire for us moving forward with those expenditures, with that money. The next thing is along the same lines. Is the timing for this. I know that we have finished early, but how quickly can we start on the next, assuming that we do have some money for planning right now? I think it's $200,000 for getting planning going. I'm sorry? Design, I'm sorry. How soon before we can get design work going on this and shovels in the ground?
Well, it will be as soon as we can get a contract out. As soon as we secure the money, it's just how much time we have to follow the protocols to either go for bids or whatever would need to be done. But there is no reason to not follow the process.
Well, based on past events, Mr. Wolfley, given the funding source, the contracting process, design phase, is going to take at least 2 months, and then another 2 months for the contract. Most likely, if we intend to start now, we expect to be awarding the bid and ready to go to work. I would expect, based on the past, in the next 6 to 7 months.
Okay.
Correct.
And well, I'm certainly very much in favor of that. And
using monies that are in this current budget.
Okay.
And the assignment, the CIP assignments in the current budget, and of course we just got to find the money. And we did get $2.45 million of the $5 million that we supposed to get. So we have that fund, and we have our general fund balance too. We just need the direction of the council as to what source to take it from.
All right. Okay. So let's see. On the, I want to get back onto the class 4 in-pipe relining. Are there situations where that's not viable?
I'm sorry?
Are there situations where the class 4 pipe relining in place, are there situations where it's not viable solution? I noted that we finished up Heather Hills that way, but are there circumstances where we find that we're not able to use that solution?
I don't know any, but I don't know if Dr. Yin has an opinion about that.
So generally, taking Heather Hills as an example, I would say majority of the piping segment are finished by class 4 CIPP lining. And if some piping segment are too short, like for example, you need to install some valves, and then between the valve there's very short distance. In that case, of course, you don't want to use it, because there is some base cost associated with it, right? And but majority of the situation, especially for Bowie. I would say for Bowie community set up, majority of the streets should be able to use CIPP lining. There will be some isolated, not necessarily isolated, like at the end of the, the lining area, the distance doesn't fit, or sometimes if there are like a very sharp curvature, things like that, or if there is like a lot of connection, may necessitate excavation.
Exactly.
Those kind of situation would need open excavation, but I would say majority should fit.
Okay. Thank you. Another question that was not addressed in the presentation was water tower. We had a water tower that was repainted and it caused some problems. I think there was an issue with curing on the inside, resulting in some odor. Which water tower was that, and has that been resolved?
Yes, go ahead,
All right, that's the Meteor Lane, the 3 million gallon water storage reservoir. And that issue has been completely resolved. We basically just take the tank down and then give it enough time to cure, and the problem fixes itself.
Okay.
Yep. And we don't have any complaints, and we have testing done before we release the water to the public.
And when did we finish on that?
Actually, September.
Okay. So it's back in production?
Yes.
Service. Okay. So presumably, because my understanding is that odor problem's been associated with that problem as opposed to the tuberculation. Is that correct?
In the past, yes, but since we fixed it, no.
Well, 8 months ago, when the contractor when they did the job, did not allow the paint to cure, and it produced an odor, and it was Dr. Yin worked with them, and they redid it. The contractor stood behind his work, came back, redid it, and then he got it.
Yeah. But my point being is that any complaints about odors were associated with the tank, not with tuberculation.
Correct.
All right.
Yes, that is.
I guess, from my standpoint, my ask of staff is, for you guys to come back to us with a solution for accelerating, this project as much as possible, given the fact that we've got some money that's available from HARP, and that we've got a completed first phase, and we'd like to see what the recommendations are on that, because I know it's a little bit too complicated to try and come back and tell you exactly what to do from the standpoint of do X, Y, and Z. But I would like to see something come back with how quickly we can move this forward. Is that something?
Well, we'll just want to make some clarity here, right? We currently the plan is to do another 2.5 miles of pipe. Or are you asking us to do 5 miles of pipe at one time, or are you sticking with the plan? That's what I want to know. That's what we need to know, because that involves more money, and instead of, I think it's we need $9 million to finish what we plan to do. But we only need half of that to go to the next phase.
Right. And so my understanding is that we have a plan that includes a source for money that we had planned out.
We were going to borrow that.
Right. And it did not include the $2.4 million that we're planning to get from HARP. And I would like to see what we can do to advance the project, given the fact that we have additional monies coming in.
Well, we can look at doing a bigger project. We're going to need, just to get on the record, we're going to need to use some of our money, and then if we expand it to increase our project management capacity. Because with the people that we have currently, if we expand the project, then we won't have anybody to manage all our other CIP projects. So we'll look at, instead of a 2.5 mile variance, look at 4 miles. Is that the sort of thing we're talking about?
It's that sort of thing, in whatever way makes sense, whether it's 2 miles or 4 miles, or 2 and 3, or whatever is appropriate. But the basic request is see what we can do to accelerate, given that we do have some additional funding.
Coming in, but still, I'm sorry, I don't want to speak out of turn, Mr. Mayor, but I'm totally on board with Gfoa's approach to this, but I do want to work to minimize any sort of disruption to the neighborhoods, because if we go from 2.5 miles of pipe to 4 or 3 or other, then this disruptions to quality of life for other neighborhoods is negatively impacted for a longer, greater time. So I want to be mindful of that too, while we're working on the repairs.
We'll look at the cost, and we're talking about $4 to $5 million worth of work, and then we'll come back to the point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Congress, Deborah Harrington.
I'll be very brief because you all have explained everything very well. I do have a pretty good understanding of everything. So thank you so much, Jose. Appreciate it. My question is approximately how many miles of pipe are in the critical zone of that Kenilworth neighborhood? Does anyone have that answer?
Yeah, it's in the presentation, but at home, can you want to address that?
I'm sorry, I just don't remember. I just wanted to get this.
Sure.
In the worst phase, it was 4.5 miles, and
correct.
Next level was 3.8. Just in
correct. Yep.
And how long specifically will that work take to fix the 4.5 miles? An estimate?
It took us 10 months. It took us 10 months to do 2.6 miles. And but again, we got an excellent design team and an excellent contractor. And if we can get the same level, maybe just do proportionally, right?
Okay, so 10 months to do 2.6 miles.
Yeah, maybe 1.5 or a little over 1.5 years, something like that.
Right. Okay.
There's one other factor we need to consider with construction. Where sometimes you don't always get bid prices coming in the way you want them. And especially with this supply chain situation going on, construction projects can be high. That's one of the things we have to keep in mind.
Right, because that 10 months really from the start of when construction starts, correct?
Right, exactly. Yeah, not including contracting. So that would be longer, right? That's a good point. Actually, I forgot. There is basically WSSC has like the frosting, no construction, like no above ground piping construction period because of the freezing time period between middle November to March. So luckily for Heather Health project, they basically between March to November they finish it.
Right.
Yeah. So if you have longer, that no work period would have to taken into consideration.
Well, yeah. One of the things I would like to add is that logistics plays a big factor, as I said it before, because even though you have the money, you have the resources, we don't want to inconvenience a bunch of people at the same time. So you need to plan on that, and that is the benefits of a good design plan, and that you look at all those things, environment, construction season, and everything else, and then you come up with a schedule. So I think it's kind of premature to just pretty much give you a date. I would rather just have them have a plan, and based on a detailed plan that's not just based on a conversation, just let you know what is the best engineering estimate for this to get done.
Right, and I totally understand that, and yes, we definitely need a plan. I guess I'm just trying to make sure the residents understand exactly how long this might take. So I appreciate the fact that we had a presentation on a short-term solution, because I think that's needed. We don't want our residents drinking the brown water. So it's certainly worthwhile to also, and I know staff, you're going to look at the presentation from Ms. Harrington, but I think based on the time frame and how long it's going to take it, there may, it's great to look at some short-term solutions, or what we can do to alleviate the problem.
Yeah, and we did look into that too, and just like to have some numbers, but the filter that was installed at Mr. Gallagher's house, the canister, it cost $136. The filter, it cost $24, so it's $160. But the big expenditure is to have the plumber install it, because it took about 8 hours, and just asking plumber rates, that's about $2,000 total.
Wow. And I'm thinking, is that because it's an older water system?
Yes. Yeah, well, it is also that because you have to fit it, like Ms. Harrington said, you have to cut and do different things and pipe it so you can fit it in. But I guess that's the number that we come up with. So it will be a comparable solution, but I don't know if how you separate the installation cost from a very sophisticated water system when our canister and filter is doing the job for $160, but then you have to put the burden on the residents to spend almost $2,000 to install it.
Right, I understand that. Yeah, and would it be like similar across the board for all the Levitt homes as far as installation?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Paul Buckley told me that pretty much, and that's what it's gonna take.
Okay. All right, you've answered my questions. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other questions at this time? Hearing none, I'd like to say thank you so very much to staff for your presentation this evening. We appreciate it, and I know we have some action items going forward. So again, thank you so very much. At this time,
you're welcome, Mayor.
Oh, thank you. At this time, we're going to move on to the auditor's annual presentation. I believe Byron Matthews is going to take the lead on that, or city staff, whoever's up next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is Byron Matthews from the...
I'm sorry, Byron? Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, pardon me, Byron. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, introduce a motion to have staff sit with Ms. Harrington and discuss her solution and to go over her pricing and things of that nature. Because Mr. Gallagher's filter was, the filter was successful. And again, I say to you, he says that it has made his life better. This may be an advantage, just a advantage, but people need clean drinking water today. So I like to make a motion to direct.
If you don't mind, I don't think we need to do a motion for that. I think
we don't. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I was just informed by the city manager. We didn't need a motion to do so.
So we're fine.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving right ahead along the game. I will turn it back over to Byron Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is Byron Matthews from the Finance Department. This evening we have a representative, Craig Bussick, the principal from Clifton Larson Allen. They have been the city's auditors since 2017. The firm has a variety of clients from nonprofit to governments. They have over 200,000 clients, over 7,400 staff members, and 120 different locations. Aris Coleman, who is the Director of State and Local Governments, basically handled the audit for us as our direct contact. And as again, I said, Mr. Bussick is the principal auditor, and he will be giving the presentation this evening. Greg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And good evening, Mr. Bussick. Please go right ahead.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen and walk you through the presentation. If I can get it to work, here we go. It looks like I'm having trouble getting it to pull up. So I'll just walk you through. Did everyone get a copy of the slides?
Mr. Bussick, I have it in my computer. I could play it in the background if you like.
Oh, please do. All right, so you want to just jump to the next slide?
1 second. Here it goes.
Cool, thank you. All right, so tonight I want to go over a few things, the results of the audit, a few areas we'll cover is our approach, the results, and some required communications.
Somebody has an extra screen and open.
Byron, that's your screen.
Byron.
I've released my screen.
It's still showing up.
Okay, let's see here. Let's see here.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, here we go. All right, so next slide. So our approach is a risk-based approach. We do look at key controls within the city, then look at the major areas within the financial statements. As part of the process, we do speak with management, finance director, other folks around the city, key departments throughout the engagement. We have regular status meetings, informal communications. The overall process, we start late spring and then go into the, take a break when manager closes out, and then we come back in the fall and perform the rest of the engagement. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm happy to report that we did issue an unmodified opinion, also known as a clean opinion, the highest form of assurance that we can get. So this is what the city wants. I know the manager works hard throughout the year, recording transactions, preparing financial reports, and ultimately preparing the annual comprehensive financial report, which is a new term. Used to use the term comprehensive annual financial report, and the acronym has kind of fallen out of favor within the industry. So now ACFR or ACFR is the term you'll hear a lot. And then one thing I'd like to point out is that due to all of management's hard work, last year's financial statements did receive the Gfoa Certificate of Excellence. And so that's always a year behind, a year lag. So my understanding is that they're going to submit again this year, and based on the quality of the document, it looks like they will be receiving it again this year. So feather in their cap, and just wanted to give them a compliment there. Next slide, please. All right, so we do issue a couple other reports. One report is report on internal control, and that's required by government audit standards. We had no findings there, so no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. This year, due to the CARES Act money, we will be conducting a single audit. and we weren't able to complete that engagement yet because the compliance supplement hasn't been submitted or hasn't been provided yet by OMB. They're in process of finalizing that, and we expect to get that probably within the next month or so. And then we've done a lot of the testing that we could do, but we need the final guides before we can complete. Next slide, please. Okay, and now I'll get to the required communications. A lot of these may sound familiar. This is fairly boilerplate, but one thing, so our audit is conducted in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. So we issue an opinion on the financial statements. It basically says that the financial statements have been prepared in accordance with GAAP, which is generally accepted accounting principles. Next slide, please. When you look at the financial statements, it's important to read the notes to the financial statements. This will report the qualitative aspects. So there are some things quantitatively, certainly the numbers within the financial statement, then qualitative. The notes tell the story behind the financial statement, so it's important to look at those. Next slide, please. There are certain estimates within the financial statements. There are certain things considered soft numbers. So you're looking at depreciable lives for capital assets. So you're looking at systematic write-off of a period of time of certain assets. And then your pension liability, your OPEB liability, those calculations are performed by outside specialists. You have actuaries that perform that work for you. We get their reports, we confirm their independence, look at the assumptions they use and the inputs, and look at the overall outputs that come out for reasonableness, and we didn't have any issues there. Next slide, please. And we did conclude that based on those estimates, there was no negative impact on the financial statements. Within the financial statements, there are no sensitive disclosures. The disclosures are clear, concise, and pretty consistent with industry standards. Next slide, please. No difficulties in performing the audit. Man was very helpful. Again, we want to thank them for their assistance. We couldn't do the audit and get it done on time without their help. No disagreements with management over the performance of any procedures or any information that we requested. And they did sign a representation letter to us at the end of the engagement. Next slide, please. All right, no consultations with other accountants or no issues discussed with management prior to attention. These are related to what they call opinion shopping, and none of that occurred, so really not a lot to discuss there. And there were no additional findings to report as a result of the engagement. Next slide, please. There were no uncorrected or corrected misstatements, so we didn't find anything that rose to a level that we brought to management's attention that they needed to fix. So the financial statements were in good shape when we received them, and we did not identify any adjustments. Next slide, please. When you take a look at the annual comprehensive financial report, it's a decent sized document. There's a lot of information included in there. We don't express opinions on the entire document. So if you look, you'll see there's an introductory section, there's management's discussion and analysis, financial statements, notes, required supplementary information, and then statistical information. So as you read the auditor's opinion, just keep that in mind as you look at the different sections of the statements. We don't provide an opinion on every section. Next slide, please. And that's everything I wanted to cover tonight. Again, thanks to city staff for all their help as we get outside. We deal with accounting and finance quite a bit, but we also get outside and to speak with other departments as well. So at this point, I'd like to open up for any questions that you may have.
Hey, council members, do we have any questions? I'd like to say thank you very much, and kudos again to Byron and the staff for an outstanding job you always do. Having said that, any questions? I think Councilwoman Harrison had a comment or a question. You're fine. Any other questions from anyone? Hearing none, Mr. Bussey, thank you so very much. And again, Byron and team, as always, outstanding.
All right, well, you're welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that.
All right. At this time, we will now move to that item we added, I believe, to the agenda, and I'll go to Councilman Estette.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I know it's late, so I'll just keep it quick. I don't necessarily know how much debate we want to have about this. We've received requests from multiple groups who are paying money to use our indoor recreation facilities that we reopen those. Those have been, for now, closed until the 18th. I think we all recognize that Omicron is, the variant is spreading, but also looking at, hospitalizations and deaths, it's looking an awful lot like folks who are vaccinated, in particular boosted, have exceedingly low risks, both in relative and in absolute terms. Throughout this pandemic, the city has been united and as staff and employees and council, working effectively with the county and state. And we've played it very, very, very cautiously during the pandemic. I think that was the right call. But now, as vaccination rates, especially in the local area, are very, very high, I know as a policymaker, as someone who lives in the community and interacts an awful lot with residents, my confidence level is higher. I know that of my residents. Their confidence level certainly is much higher. And I'm personally more than comfortable encouraging staff to consider reopening facilities ahead of January the 18th, and ideally in advance of this weekend. And that's what I would throw out there for my colleagues for consideration.
If I could, Councilman, and I think you have a broad thought on that. I would tend to say that I would ask that we caution, that we venture on the side of caution and be very prudent about this. In speaking with a lot of the health officials, and many of you know I'm engaged with the hospitals and other things, that we really are, particularly here in Bowie and in Prince George's County, having a real high incidence of the Omicron right now. And it is affecting those who have been vaccinated and who have the booster shots. And so my main concern isn't because of the hospitalizations of those people, but my main concern is for our most defenseless, and being our youngest kids, the young kids, those who can't get vaccinated at all. And my concern is that if we allow these to open, people can potentially bring those back to their families. And that being staff who works there, or even those who participate. And our youngest, we're seeing a higher rate of them being hospitalized. And I just think that it was prudent of the city managers and others to close that. And I would ask that we just try and bear with it for another couple of weeks, at least till that 18th, to see if we can get some control over this. Because again, it's about those who are most vulnerable, and those are the kids who can't get vaccinated at all. So I just ask we continue to weigh on the side of caution there, for their sake.
I totally respect the mayor's position on this. I think it's frankly astonishing and probably a good thing that in the last 22 months there hasn't been a lot of controversy or really debate about the city's policy so far. I think it speaks well that all of us have been extremely cautious. A big shout out to staff that we have 100% vaccination among all of our city employees. That is extraordinary. Looking at what a lot of other communities are facing right now, we have done extremely well. And I think up until now, there hasn't really been a whole lot of reason for difference of perspective on this issue. I do think, especially engaging with residents, I think there probably is a little bit more room for good faith disagreement on this one at this stage. I would ask that my colleagues do consider moving forward. If any of my other colleagues have any thoughts, I'm curious. Otherwise, I'm happy to put forward a motion.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts here. First, for city staff, a two-pronged question. One, obviously, Al, you made, I think, at the time, the right decision, and obviously spoke right before you did that. But what is the recommendation from staff as we have this discussion? It's kind of number one. Number two, I assume we can expect an increase over the next, really this week, turning back vacation and from prep. And I know Lee isn't on this call. What is kind of what the early predictions of what we should expect next? Soon we're going to see more hospitalizations, and I know the governor just said the worst is to come the coming weeks, right? Are we being a little too not as cautious by doing this here? I kind of want to hear staff's thoughts on this.
Well, the latest data we've gotten regarding Prince George's County is that its cases are projected to increase from 133,000 to 155,000 in the next 7 days. And that's an increase of 23,000 in a week. My objective was to, based on the emergency management advice and of course the medical input that's going into that, was to take the precaution and then try to figure out how we reopen and be in a safe fashion. And my intent was to look to reopen as long as we don't have any catastrophic increases or impact in the city, and with the vaccination requirement for anybody who wants to get in our facilities. That's what I would like to do. But if we could take a couple of weeks to the 18th and see how things go and ride this out of it. I've been reading that some of the experts believe that the Omicron variant will die out quickly, as it has in other places in the world. Maybe that's what the county exec had in mind. I don't know. But I know one thing. For some reason, it's inexplicable. The infection rates, the death rates, the hospitalization rates in this county double compared to the state of Maryland. Always. It's amazing why that happens. Don't know why, but that's one of the reasons why I guess the county tech took this step. But of course we're flexible. We'll do what you want us to do.
Yeah. Well, let's not get into that. I appreciate the thought. Look, here are my thoughts overall. I mean, the governor has made mention in the last few weeks, and I do sympathize with folks, right, who have gotten vaccinated, have gotten boosted, and really they should and they want to, right? I guess my positioning is more so in the sense that I'm curious to see what the week's numbers look like, right? The incubation period is shorter for the Omicron variant, and I'm interested to see what that looks like, right? So I'm not opposed to moving it up from the 18th to a different date, but I also don't want to immediately start opening facilities tomorrow, especially as we're coming off of New Year's wave. I think that may be a bit irresponsible. I'm open to looking at next month as a date, as we look at the data and come together as a group and try to make that decision. But I don't know if we should be opening it immediately right after the New Year's inevitable spread. So that's my position.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
Go to Councilwoman Harrison had her hand up first.
Okay.
I'll thank you to Councilman Honor. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, I do, based on a conversation I had earlier today, I did some checking, and, you know, the rates have been increasing for our younger population. And I know that I'm guessing as far as our residents come to the ice rink, they may be some that aren't, will there be younger members coming necessarily in the vaccination rate? Would we require them to be, anyone who comes into the ice rink to be vaccinated? I'm asking that question of Sam.
Well, it would be my intent that anybody over the age of 5 would have to be vaccinated.
Right.
My 5-year-old grandson's vaccinated, so it certainly you can get it. And the kids that are under that, of course, we wouldn't require them to, but everybody over that would be vaccinated or show us proof, and that makes it, that takes a big barrier away from us with regard to who we let in. And we know that it has worked for us in the senior center because we're requiring everybody to be vaccinated there for the last 2 months.
Right. Okay, so then your restriction would be everyone would have to present proof of vaccination upon coming into the facility.
Yeah, and wear masks and social distance where you can, and the way we've done in the senior center, it's worked for us there.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilmember Gardner?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to say first, thank you for letting me go now. But I understand both yourself and Councilmember and Mayor Pro Tem Gfoa and your concerns for the public. I am too also concerned about the rise and increase in numbers. It is frightening. However, there are individuals who have been vaccinated fully and boosted, and they have their CDC card to present. As the city manager and Councilmember Harrison pulled out, was that individuals who are to be vaccinated, age 5 and above, I would say we just keep those restrictions in place. I feel like, it's just, maybe it's a personal thing, but I feel as though the country is suffering because of those who are not vaccinated, and life has been pulled to a screeching halt because of that, and it's rather unfortunate. And these are young people who want to skate. These are young people who want to use our recreational facilities. These are seniors who want to access to the senior center, as well as our golfers who want access to the golf course. It's my opinion that if an individual is fully vaccinated and has their booster, and we have them obeying the rules of wearing a mask and with social distancing, as the city manager stated, where it can occur, I'm okay with that. I have to be honest with you. That's my personal opinion on that. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would support opening those facilities with those guidelines and restrictions in place. We have to start generating revenue. The city's lost revenue, and Mr. Mayor, a lot of businesses, if you go over to the Bowie Town Center, that place is almost like a ghost town, and not just ours, but Annapolis Mall, Pentagon City Mall, Columbia Mall. These retailers have closed their doors permanently because people are staying home. And if we can get just a small group of people who want to go out and continue life, then by all means allow them to do so.
I understand your perspective there, but I will state again, in talking with the health experts, and that was again today, that we have to understand that this Omicron variant is affecting people who have been vaccinated and who have had their boosters as well. So this isn't just to those who are not vaccinated a booster. So again, it's just trying to go with the health experts, with the county exec, but we're trying to do to just keep the masses safe. And my concern is that those who may contract it, taking it back to their younger siblings, grandkids, or whatever, and even for our staff. So that's my position on that. I understand the mental well-being that we need for socializing, but I just think it's a risk that we shouldn't be taking right now. I just don't think it's prudent to open up right now, based upon the data and the science.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, may I make a comment, please?
Yes, please, go right ahead.
I come down on the side of opening the places up for those who are vaccinated. Everywhere we go, we see people who are in day-to-day activities. Responsible people have made choices about, their health based on their own understanding of the facts. And if people have taken the effort to get vaccinated, I think they should not be hindered from moving forward with some of these activities. And I think that everybody can make the judgment that says, hey, if I have somebody who's at risk at home, I should not, even if I am vaccinated, I should refrain from participating or engaging in this type of activity, or whether it's flying or going to the grocery store or going to the gym. We all have to make those decisions at some point in time. And I think that at this point, we ought to not be making it difficult for those who have done the right thing and gotten the vaccines and you know, allow those folks to participate fully in society to the extent that we're able to provide them the infrastructure.
I respect your thought process there, and I do. But the other people that it affects are city staff who have to work there as well. And they don't get that choice. And so again, just trying to cut back on it. So again, but I understand your position, I truly do. Was there anybody else comment?
Yeah, just want to get a couple of clarifications.
Yes, please put it down.
First, Al, we're doing vaccination requirements for anyone over 5. Are we doing mask requirements for everybody as well?
What was that question? One more time.
Yeah, I was just trying to get clarification on what this policy would look like if we reopen things, right? We're doing required vaccinations for everyone over 5. We're also doing, are we doing also required masks for everybody?
Yes.
Masks is current county policy.
Right.
Current county.
Yes.
Okay. And then obviously the CDC put out some new guidelines about, now I'm talking on the staff level, about staff getting sick and what the quarantine period should be. The city saying, look, we're gonna follow what the CDC guidelines are. Are we still allowing people up to the full day, 10 days? You know, what does that look like? Because I think the mayor made a good point in terms of staff that may get sick or may contract it, not just from work, but from the outside environment as well.
We're following the CDC guidance on the requirements for either quarantine or the time from, you know, a vaccinated person versus an unvaccinated person. There are specific rules about that, and you know, we'll forward you all a copy of that. Lee listed it all for that. We're right in line on that.
Sounds good. Okay, thanks.
I think you might be on mute, Mr. Mayor.
I'm looking around, let's see if there's any other hands, anyone, any comment?
Yeah, I'll just add one final thought on this real quick. My understanding from staff is that currently our approach to the pandemic with respect to city employees is that they're only staying home if they are symptomatic, right, for, you know, more serious illness. Is that correct?
It's more complicated, and I have to get there's a really specific breakdown that Lee laid out that's in line with what the CDC's policy is in the county. But if somebody's identified themselves as symptoms, we want them to stay home and get tested. And then if they're a vaccinated person, there's a certain rule, and if they're unvaccinated, the rule, there's a standard, and we're just following that. And I can forward it to you all if Lee didn't already do so. You don't have to remember those specific points, do you, Dan?
Yeah, I'd certainly welcome that.
No, I mean, it's really complicated. The whole thing's gotten complicated because of the whole vaccinated versus not. But we're lining up with that.
So, and I'll just add, as far as I know, the groups that have reached out to us expressing a desire to open up, you know, are saying that, you know, their members are overwhelmingly vaccinated and they have no compunctions about being required to show proof of vaccination in order to be able to use the facilities. Would staff on the city employee end have any trouble being able to implement that? We're already doing it at the senior center. For our recreation facilities, would staff have any issues being able to implement a vaccine proof requirement?
When large groups of people come in, but we're prepared to do it. I had a discussion with the director today about that issue. When the swirling maelstrom of, you know, elected officials being called and pressured to open by the hockey guys, and came to me, and my position was to her that, you know, yes, I mean, as we look at this whole thing, the last thing I want to do is close anything down, because, you know, I'm vaccinated and boosted, and I don't want to be limited myself. However, I could not overlook this infection rate, which is extraordinary for some reason, more so here. But my intent is to, if we ride this out or whatever, and you know, whatever you all allow, And then, we'll be ready on the 18th or Monday or whatever to say, okay, show me your vaccination card or you can't come in. And it'll take a little longer. Maybe they'll need some extra people around there to do that when they have a big hockey team, but we're prepared to execute. And it's worked for us in the senior center, we know how to do it.
Yeah. And I mean, I get that Omicron spreads quickly. As far as we know, and if someone has better information, I'm all ears. This is a sincere desire to talk this through. I know it's tough, and I know it's very late. But as far as we can tell, this is at this point of pandemic of the unvaccinated, right? My understanding is that if you've been vaccinated and boosted, your odds with Omicron of ending up in the hospital or dying is in both relative and absolute terms very, very, very low.
Much less.
Am I wrong in understanding that?
Well, that's correct. I mean, in my family, my brother-in-law, who was unvaccinated, is in his 50s, and he caught it, and he's in the hospital. I know other people who had breakthroughs who were at home with flu symptoms, but they're okay. And so that's true. One of the things we're going to eventually have to get around to is the requirement to have people boosted. And I project that we'll be getting to the point of making that a requirement within the next 3 months. Just because this COVID-19 is so persistent, it won't go away and it won't back off. But the only way to survive is to be either vaccinated or boosted, or you got to go hide yourself in the corner and not go anywhere.
I again would just urge my colleagues that we just be prudent and be a little more patient in waiting through this. Having talked to several members from the medical community about this, and their recommendation is for us not to, because it is so. Mayor Pro Governor and others, and that is with New Year's just coming by and the holidays and people returning, we're probably going to see a influx. I think we just be patient and just take a look and wait and see and do our part to try and slow down the spread as much as we can and not put people in a position of where unknowingly they may be spreading it to themselves or, like I said, to city staff, and more importantly, to the younger individuals who can't be vaccinated. Because those players probably have siblings or parents and they'll go home, and there's that Omicron variant is so, and we've got the underlying problem now the flu season hitting us. And so the testing sites are overwhelmed. We know that it's so hard to get kits. So again, I just hope that we can be a little more patient, prudent, but I do absolutely understand the position of my colleagues. No.
Hearing and recognize the validity of different perspectives on this, I would like to make a motion. If there is support, great. If there's not, that's okay too. We're in the stage of the pandemic where I think this is the kind of thing that everyone's kind of trying to figure out and settle in good faith. I would like to make a motion that we reopen city facilities, I would say starting this Friday, the 7th, with proof of vaccination requirements. Obviously following all the county's guidelines vis-a-vis masks, but that we reopen those facilities starting on Friday. I would also like to include in the motion, if this has to be separate, that's fine too, a request that if it's not a question of following county rules, but merely county or CDC guidelines, that future reopening decisions involve a council poll or be brought up at council meetings, whichever is necessary by law, rather than purely being made at staff level. Does that clock? Do I need to separate those motions, restate any of that?
Councilman, could I make a friendly amendment?
Please.
Do you mind making it actually the Monday the 10th? Just because, again, I feel comfortable seeing what happens on Friday. Prediction is that cases are going to go up. We're going to stay probably But if we're not, things are great. I think Monday is a reasonable time to that'll be my own.
I totally hear you. Let's do Friday first and then see where we are.
Melissa, do we have to have two separate motions there, or?
I'm gonna, I guess I'm hedging. If council feels that they understand and can vote on the motion in its compound form, you can proceed, but the risk is that you get a vote against it because someone is opposed to part, but not all of the motions. So I'll leave that to Mr. Estep to determine how he wants to proceed in that.
Michael?
Happy to proceed with the motion as stated.
Okay, it's been moved. And if we could restate, I believe it says that we open all facilities on this coming Friday, and that in the future that the city staff come to council for guidelines regarding closures that are simply based on recommendations or actions of the county executive. Is that pretty much where we're going with this? And someone help me out here if I got it wrong.
That's correct. The only other part just being proof of vaccination for recreation facilities in the senior center.
Proof of vaccination.
It's been moved.
Oh, I like to second that. I'll second.
And second. Any discussion? Councilwoman Harrison?
Just a quick point, kind of piggybacking on what Mayor Pro Tem suggested as far as moving it to Monday. But could Michael maybe look at the number of cases? If the cases are at a certain level in the city, we may want to reconsider opening on Monday. You know what I mean? So let's say our cases go up by, 25,000. I'm just saying, it's the Bowie. We may want to say, well, maybe it's not a good idea to move forward with that by Friday because it is Monday. So, and they are predicting that the cases go up a certain amount.
I 100% hear that. I'm 100% open to amending the motion. That's we do like a council poll, say this Thursday, where we give ourselves the ability to reevaluate.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, and look, the county executive may very well decide on tomorrow, right? Everything's closed. So this, depending on at their discretion, this may end up not being our decision, depending on how things shake out. But 100% happy to also add a council poll Thursday, allowing us to reconsider. I appreciate that suggestion.
So my question is, do we need to vote on it, or can we just do the poll on Thursday?
Yeah, just clarification. Those are three different motions that also kind of contradict.
Yeah, so that's my question.
Can we?
And can I call the question and ask that we vote on this one? And if we don't get for it, that's 100% okay. I won't be offended, but and then we can go back and revisit.
So just for clarification.
Yeah.
On the question, to vote on the motion which states that we will reopen on Friday, and that for all future reopening decisions, council poll and involvement must. That's the motion, right?
And that everyone must present a CDC card showing vaccination and booster.
What's that?
Or any proof of vaccination at the same time.
Any proof of vaccination. Proof of vaccination. Yeah.
And the poll is not included. The council poll on
not included in this.
No, it wouldn't be included. I was just making a statement. It was part of the discussion. So however we want to handle that, it is great, but I would feel more comfortable if we could reevaluate before moving forward with opening on Friday. That's all.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. Oh, go ahead. We're going to tell you. Mayor Pro Tem?
No, I was just making a statement saying that I agree with Councilwoman Harrison that I think it needs to be further evaluated on Thursday. So, you know, he's called questions. Let's vote. Mr. Mayor, I do request a roll call vote though. Thank you.
Okay, it's requested for a roll call vote. At this time, the city clerk, will you call the vote, please? I will go first, and on my concern for the health and safety of the citizens and the health and safety of our city staff and our young people, I vote no.
Mayor Pro Tem Boffo?
No.
Councilmember Gardner?
Yes.
Councilmember Harrison?
Yes.
Councilmember Esteve?
Aye.
Councilmember Wolfley?
Aye.
Councilmember Ndebumalu? Councilmember Ndebumalu? Without her vote, we have 4-2, Mayor. So the ayes have it.
Okay. Motion carries. Councilwoman Harrison, you have your hand up?
Yes. Can I now move that we take a poll on Thursday to reevaluate?
Yes.
I'll second that.
I second. Yes.
Moved and second that we take a poll on Thursday as to whether or not we should proceed with the open Friday. Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none. I don't think we need a poll. Oh, you know what? Go ahead, Wilda, do another vote.
Okay. Mayor Adams?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boffo?
Aye.
Councilmember Gardner?
Yes.
Councilmember Harrison?
Aye.
Councilmember Esteve?
Aye.
Councilmember Wolfley?
Aye.
Councilmember Ndebumalu? Ayes have it, Mayor. 6-0.
Okay. Hey, I think I'd like to say to all the citizens, on behalf of the council as a whole and from the staff, Happy New Year. Asking everyone to please stay safe. To city staff, as always, thank you so very, very much for all your support that you did last year and all that you started this year with. To my federal council members, again, Happy New Year, and please stay safe at this time. And I will entertain the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the session to adjourn the closed session under Staff Authority Maryland Annotated Code Statement in Article Subsection 3-305B1 to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, and performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, and other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individual in subsection 3-305B7 to consult with counsel in subsection 305B8. So second consultant other individuals litigation.
Second.
It's been second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Ayes have it. We will be